So anyway, you were saying?
Those are yearbooks.
Yep.
Your books.
That right there, that should be good right there.
Okay.
You know, when Pete Pringle died, his wife brought,
Yeah.
his wife came and gave me like all of Pete's yearbooks.
Oh, really?
So I have a lot of them, and I don't know what to do with them. So I have like mine plus his.
Oh.
You know.
So here's your first year.
75.
Well,
Yeah, well, okay, yeah.
It was a 70.
Yeah.
I was going to be a sophomore.
Oh my
when you
goodness.
Came to teach.
Oh my goodness.
And I put little cards in there for the 2 spots. You've seen those before, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I have, but honestly, this is good research on your part. Yeah.
But people
Yeah.
people will always say, now, how did you get a high school teacher that was younger than you, Todd? Seriously.
Well, and you say it was just luck of the draw. No. Yeah, look at these.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of funny because we went out to eat up at.
I'm just gonna move this
Okay,
just a
might
little
want
bit
me
closer.
to.
I'm
Sure.
sorry.
No, you're.
mean to
Don't
impose on
apologize.
you.
Don't apologize. We went out to eat once up at the firehouse in Sauk, and Kathy Brabender waited on us.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked and introduced him to Jet's mom and dad. And then Ivan said, so is that one of your students? I'm like, no, she's like 10 years older than I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get that a lot.
That was typical of my dad.
Yeah.
Here's that you can see that picture. And
Yes.
this other picture is almost exact. It's like they snuck up on you. Is that
I
true? Do you
think
remember
so.
that at all?
Probably
Yeah.
I don't. But look
There's
at, I
that
had
one.
such great colleagues. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I picked out the 2 that were, and this is my senior year, and you kind of have the same look on your face, sort of. See that
Oh
one?
yeah. So I was at my desk probably,
Yeah.
you know, and they came by and said, we don't have a picture of you yet. That's back when it was so expensive to get pictures taken. They didn't.
Yeah, and then they had to develop them
Pre-cell
all
phone.
and everything. Didn't we have a dark room? I think we had a dark room at the
Did we?
school and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
That wasn't in Stelzel's area, was it? Do you remember when
Yeah.
when I went through high school?
100
It's a
years
lot.
ago, right?
Yeah. But they had a dark room right off of his
Right.
room.
Yes. So it was back in the art room off of that. There was, those people had camera stuff and dark room. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay.
And then I'm not going to impose on you that you have to wear these. But see, there's a 1978 pin.
Okay, I'll
and
put it on.
1978 pin.
Oh, I'll wear
And then
mine.
You wear yours, and then I'll put my letter jacket on.
Okay.
36 years
Oh,
older than me.
We should have worn
pin-
our hair and Frau T-shirts that we
Because
have.
you guys-
Oh, that's right.
I'm not getting the shot here. Because you guys, I mean, you didn't graduate, but you came there just a year after I entered high school.
Right.
And how many years did you teach?
36.
36 years, and then all 3 of your boys.
Right. Graduate from
from
there.
Heights.
Right.
So
Wow.
you're just...
Are we on the air?
We sure are.
Are we
But you
honestly?
student taught
And I student taught here.
the year before.
Well, see, I've told the boys that I
They didn't
said,
believe you.
did you have a different last name then?
Yes.
See, I
Yeah.
did remember that. And then I was looking through I thought it was my junior to senior year, but it was my freshman to sophomore year because there was another German teacher there,
Right.
Normark or something
Annika
like
Normark, just a stunning Scandinavian
Yeah.
woman. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
that. Yeah. So what was your maiden name?
My maiden name was Gauchi.
Gauchi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you Frau Gauchi then?
I was Fräulein Gauchi.
Oh,
yeah,
that- okay,
because-
yes, right.
Yeah, come on.
But that's old fashioned. They don't differentiate very much.
Oh, they
anymore,
don't?
but
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I got. Did you want me to start telling how I got to be the student
Yeah,
teacher out
I'd
here?
like
That'd
to
be
say,
great.
don't even worry about the
You want me to
cameras
start
or anything.
talking?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please
yeah,
do.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just,
Just interact. I mean, it's
Oh,
obviously
goodness.
both your stories. so-
Before you do, are you surprised that he fits into that still?
Isn't that awesome?
That is amazing.
Well,
I had it
it's
enlarged
really
for
Did
this.
you know?
it's in really good shape
is,
too.
is it too big for your,
Well, here's
your
the thing.
boys? Too
Here's the
small?
thing.
Probably
I
too
found
big.
this class ring.
In your classroom.
This was several episodes ago, and I said I never, I got kind of hornswoggled into buying a letter jacket,
Yeah.
and then it went out of vogue.
It
I
did.
bought it my sophomore
Right.
year, and it was like, now everybody says, hey, you don't wear your letter jacket anymore. So it just hung in my closet, and so it's been hanging in there for
Pretty
40 some
nice.
years.
Pretty
You
nice.
definitely don't wear it. once you're out of high school. That's a little
Well,
bit.
you shouldn't anyway. Yeah.
Stuck in the high
Go to
school days
college.
if you're in college.
Yeah.
You haven't
Yeah.
put that to sleep.
So anyway, did you go to the UW?
Right. So I went kind of. You want to know any of this stuff?
Of course
Is that
I
right?
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
so
Yep.
I transferred to the UW between my junior and senior year in college, and I had done my junior year abroad in Germany, and my parents moved to Minneapolis, and then I didn't have a college to go to after I completed my junior year. So I went through and they moved to Minneapolis, right? And so did I want to go to Minnesota? That didn't sound so exciting. Did I want to go to Wisconsin? And I have most of my dad's and mom's relatives both grew up in Wisconsin. So I'm like, well, yeah, Wisconsin. And there's all those riots. It sounds like there's a lot of neat stuff going on in Madison. So I applied, and Madison was free. You could apply for free. So I applied and I got in, and I came here my senior year, and I had been
But Wisconsin had the #1 German program in the country.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Wisconsin and Texas and somebody else. Anyway, so came here and didn't have a place to live. And so when on my application, I'm like, I don't care where I live. I just put me in the dorms. So I'm in the dorms as a senior who's had a lot of experiences. And thank heavens they put me across the hall from another senior and a junior. So it worked out pretty nicely. But I met him because my sister dated his roommate.
Okay.
So
At the UW?
my sister, in Hayward, from Hayward.
Wow.
Yeah, her sister, they had met up in Hayward on the lake.
Yeah.
They had cabins that were near each
Okay.
other
Okay.
in Hayward.
So then I met him, and the rest is kind of history. But anyway, so my parents from Minneapolis gave me a car. I'm the oldest of 5, and so there was a beat up yellow Pinto that sometimes started and sometimes didn't, and I got to take it to college my second semester because I was going to do student teaching. So they put most of the people for student teaching got assignments in the Madison School District, but because I had this wonderful car,
Reliable Pinto.
right, I got to come out to Wisconsin Heights, and I did my student teaching here. And so I did half day. So Heights had a pretty awesome German program. It was 3rd grade through 8th grade, and then the 9th grade through 12th grade. And so I did I taught student teaching. I'm going on and on.
No, you're good.
Okay. At Black Earth Elementary and at the high school.
you
So I
did?
went every day. I went back and forth. And then the next year they cut the program to save money, and I was just at the high school. And
Really?
then, so I can't remember what the question was. So I did my student teaching here, and then 2 weeks into the next school year, Annika Normark decided she wanted to go back and go to grad school, and the university started much later than the high schools. High schools back then started like August, right?
Yeah.
Middle of August,
20,
like the 20th.
20th, 21st.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she decided she got into a placement to be in the grad school there, and the job came open, and really I just kind of fell into it because who hires a German major, right? That there was no jobs around at that time. And I was like the cheapest person around, and I knew the system, so it was like slam dunk.
Perfect fit, yeah.
Yeah, so here I am.
Well, it makes me so happy that I remembered that correctly, because I've told that story many times. When your name comes up,
Yeah,
I'll say,
yeah.
well, I think she did her
It's
student
Jeri
teaching
Gauchi, yeah.
and then came back as a married
Yes.
teacher.
So I signed that contract, and I was still 22 years old, and we got married in August, and I started teaching on the 15th of September. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whirlwind. Huh. And were you, you worked for Rayovac, right? Or,
Right.
And were
After
you,
school, right.
Yeah. But were you an engineer, engineering major?
Well, not an engineering major.
Okay.
My degree was in geology, actually environmental geology.
Really?
So I got hired by Rayovac, and it was really only a temporary thing. I had interviewed with oil companies and that type of thing in school, and I think Getty Oil had told me, well, come down to Texas and we can probably guarantee you a job.
Wow.
But we had been married. She had signed a contract, and I thought, okay, I'll look for a job around Madison until that contract expires. So we're going to say for a year.
36 years
So-
later, it expired on
so
purpose.
so Rayovac hired me as a lab technician, and
Really?
promoted me to a technologist a year later, and with a good salary. And we thought, well, might as well stay around here. So that's.
Huh. Did you use your degree at all at Rayovac, or was that like a lot of people? It was like you got the study, but then you went off and did something else.
Well, a lot of the lab work background was helpful, and the chemistry that he had taken in geology was also helpful.
Okay.
But that actually, I was like, they told me, you're way overqualified for the technician job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I was able to apply myself in terms of the things that they were working on. And it was fortunate because it was kind of a key period in terms of battery technology, in terms of what was going on. It was just the ground floor of zinc air hearing aid batteries and silver oxide button cells coming into existence. And so I was able to get in on that and work my way up through the technology ladder there.
And you retired fairly early, right? I mean, you've been retired for quite a few years. 49 years old.
Yeah.
And what was your final title at Rayovac? You weren't a technician
Mr.
anymore.
Springstead, no.
Mr. Springstead, yes.
Not Herr Frau Springstead.
It's two different lives. Yeah.
Yeah. I was, well, actually, I had been in button cells for 25 years, and they moved me from the button cell department to the alkaline cylindrical department, where I was product manager for that. I had been product manager for the button cells hearing aid line prior to that.
So you're going to tell them how many patents you have?
I have 3 patents.
You do?
Wow.
My patents, I would, in my background in viewing at it, the patents weren't all that important. The technology and things we did that were trade secrets were much more important and influencing and still being used today. Those are some of those things I can't even talk about, but there's a process that for zinc that every button cell manufacturer in the world uses now. So
that started with
that started when I was a technician. That was
Okay.
one of the reasons I got the early promotion that first year. But yeah, it was those type of things. And in the experiences, the Rayovac patents at the time were really marketing influenced. That the marketing department wanted to use patents as a selling point for going into OEM customers and saying, our zinc air product line is, supported by 15 different patents and that type of thing.
I see.
So a lot of things that really weren't meaningful were patented. So I have one of the, probably a couple of the things that were most essential were the smallest hearing aid battery that was developed mainly for the Japanese market. The Japanese market, in terms of hearing aids, the Japanese are very vain.
Okay.
And they don't want to wear hearing aids. So we first developed, the hearing aid manufacturers developed the in-the-ear canal aid that you just a little monofilament line sticks out. At that time in the 80s, that was really the forefront.
Okay.
So I learned years after the fact that President Reagan was one of the first ones to use that. So I developed the battery to be able to implement that hearing aid.
That's crazy.
But they didn't, that's something that wasn't publicized at the time.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know that.
This is none of my business, but I'll ask it anyway. And you can say to any of these questions, you can say that's none of your business, or I'll pass.
Right.
But now, were those, you called them Rayovac patents? So those were patents that you developed, and yet they own.
That's almost the same as any company.
Okay.
If you're working for a company, you've signed off, and all that technical work belongs to them.
Because
even though your name is on it.
You think of a patent, you think of Edison and all these people that did patents,
Right.
and then I don't know. I assume that they had those themselves and can make money off of those patents.
Right.
But
they would have them themselves if it was their own entity, their own business that they developed it with, as opposed to working for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you grew up. Where were you born and raised?
Oh, interesting. So my mom is from Hayward, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And my dad's from Withee. And
Say it again.
Withee.
Withee?
Owen Withee, Wisconsin, the middle of
Okay.
the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Near Wausau? Or not so close?
Really in the middle, more between
Kind of
Wausau and
west
Eau
of
Claire.
Stevens Point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
And so my dad had a passion for fishing and not for farming so much. And he went up to Hayward and he was a guide up there and met my mother. And I think it was love at first sight. And they got married. And my mom owned her own beauty shop. And when they got married, she sold it. She'd gone to college up in Duluth. And my dad then got a job in Hastings, Michigan with Action Rod Industries. And so they just packed up and they went over there. And I was born there. I'm the oldest of 5. We were all born in Hastings. And at the time, so fiberglass fishing, is this really that exciting?
This is very good. For one thing, he's a big-time fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, really?
Becky is
I love
from Michigan.
fishing,
We lived
yeah.
in
Oh, I
Michigan
know.
for 10
So,
years.
right,
And
Coldwater
Jonathan
isn't-
was born there.
Well, and this is all about
And
you
I'm
guys. So
sorry,
seriously,
I have
just
to take
Are
this
you
off.
kind of warm?
This is a winter coat. So go ahead.
You're gonna stop
Dad's
there,
not
though,
nervous.
right?
He's just sweating from the heat. No, it's good.
Go ahead.
So
This
anyway,
is-
all 5 of us were born there, and this was a time when fiberglass fishing rods were pretty new.
Okay.
And then my dad got a series of promotions, so we moved a lot, and we moved to a couple other cities in Michigan, and then we almost moved to Iowa, but we then ended up in Syracuse, New York, and Miami. So I went to 4 high schools in 4 years.
wow.
But they were all, it wasn't that big of a deal back then. People moved a lot more than they do
okay.
here.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was pretty nice.
So the last one didn't kick you out. Then.
No, it did not kick me out. Nice. So I graduated from high school in Miami, Florida.
Mammy Killian,
Miami, Killian.
Rufus Ferguson's from there.
Oh, they don't know who that is.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Dan?
Number 21,
Yeah.
Rufus
Oh, my
Ferguson
goodness.
from the Badgers.
Badger,
One of the
okay,
first-
that's beyond
one of the
my
first
knowledge.
Yeah.
Famed running
That's
backs.
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly.
After.
Was he in
Keller.
school when you were there?
No.
Or
Yep.
a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there were 900 kids in our graduating class. It wasn't like
Okay.
we knew
Oh,
each
when
other.
you were there.
Yeah.
When I was there, yeah, Rufus was there in
In
college.
college, right.
College at the
right.
UW.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
at the
okay.
university, yeah. So then anyway, I went to 2 years of college in, I went to the junior college there. I'd gone and applied. So I'm really the first one. My mom went to a technical school, but I was the first one to go to college. And so it was like, well, what do we do now? Jeri's kind of ready to go to college. I was like, well, who knows, right? I mean, it wasn't like there was great guidance back then. Not that anybody was, not that they were evil, but it was kind of like, So I went to a couple schools and they were so much stricter than home. So we had just, oh my goodness, I'm totally off track here. But anyway, the riots had been going on in high schools. So the kids would just walk out of schools
Really?
and walk back in. So we to put it into perspective, in my junior year in high school, we had to there was a dress code. You couldn't wear anything different than what they had prescribed. And so now I'm in Miami, it's kind of the South, and suddenly, like the first 2 weeks of school, it's bell bottoms and like little tube tops, and it is like wild.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? But anyway, it was exciting.
And nationwide, that was about the same because I was in high school in Wisconsin here, and girls weren't allowed to wear anything but skirts
Sure.
until like my sophomore year.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you wore a skirt, if you wore a pantsuit, it had to match the top. The pants and the top had to match, and you couldn't wear sandals to school because they would be dangerous on the steps, and you couldn't wear sandals because if you had driver's ed, your foot would
That's probably
catch.
a good.
Yeah,
That's probably
maybe.
that's probably okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's way off the topic, but
No, that's great. Seriously, for me,
So,
that's
I have no
a history
idea.
lesson.
is it a history?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, mom and dad talk about those things, about whether it was the hippie movement or just things changing. And
Right.
for me, it's like,
Right.
I think, well, of course, around that time, I only see, documentaries and stuff about it. So to hear people talk about it and
Yeah.
you're just going through that from a real strict to just
It was overnight.
Wild West.
It was truly overnight. And then, so I went to look at colleges in Florida, and we still you had to sign out every night, and you couldn't. There were no boys allowed in the girls' dorms, and I looked at my mom on the way home, like it was like this wasn't going to be a good fit, but we didn't know. And I looked at her a little bit, and she looked at me, and I'm like, I don't think I can go there. And so I stayed at I stayed at home, and didn't make any difference. I mean, 5 kids, and it was chaos anyway. So I went to the junior college there, and I worked on campus, and then one day, then I took German, and just happenstance, I went into my guidance counselor at the college, and he says, you have an extra period here. With a name like Gauchi, I think you should be taking German. I'm like, all right. So I took German, and then one day and I had a horrible instructor. He was very nice, but he wrote on the board, like, if anybody wants to go to Germany, these are classes you could take over there. And so a girl in the class, I swam in high school, and she was from a different high school, but we knew each other, so we were in that class, and she says, we should maybe apply. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So we just how naive. We both applied. We got accepted. I went to summer school in Germany. Like, who knew, right? And then I came back and I thought, well, that's pretty good.
Without knowing the language.
Without hardly knowing anything. Yeah. I mean, really.
Tough.
Yeah. And then came home and I was like, yeah, I could go back to Germany. So I went back I applied to the junior year, got accepted, and my parents had moved from Miami. My dad got another promotion and then went up to Minneapolis, and the joke is they rented out my room when I came home. No, anyway.
You were able to track them down, without even Google at that time. She was able to find it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know what the question was anymore.
So you didn't really have, before that, you didn't think, I'm going to do German.
Oh, I was going to go to law school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a history major the whole time. And
where in Germany did you go to school? Do you remember?
I went, the summer course was up in northern Germany, and I had relatives up there and visited them. Some of my mom's not too distant relatives. And then I applied to a program when I was in Munich, and that was the southern Germany, not about an hour and a half from the Alps. So that was a pretty nice thing. Yeah.
Wow.
So John,
Is he here?
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
No,
seriously, don't worry about it.
We talked beforehand. All transparency. We talked beforehand. These guys have been around long enough, and we're going to have them for 2 half-hour sessions. So we've got another one, but I wanted you to tell me if you're okay, because we got to get you out.
Okay.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask you. You grew up where? What was your family like? You grew up in Wisconsin.
Very similar in terms of her, parents' background in terms of moving a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My father, after the war, he was a pilot in World War II. He came back, finished his college there. And that my parents are both from Michigan. My mother's from Detroit. My dad's from Port Huron.
Okay.
They met there while the war and while he was in boot camp, and he trained to be a pilot and went into lighter than air, so he flew blimps. He was stationed in Palo Alto, California, flying over the West Coast for air-sea rescue and, looking for Japanese subs, that type of thing.
Yeah.
After the war, he came back. He got a part-time job at the Y where he was going to dental school in Detroit. He liked Y work so much that the director there said, go to George Williams College in Chicago, which is a college for Y directors. So he did. And that's where I was born. I had one older brother. He was about 7.5 at the time that I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
My dad graduated then, was working with the Chicago Y as a youth director, was given a promotion to go to Minneapolis for the program director there. So I think I was in 2nd grade when we moved to Milwaukee, and he went to the downtown Metropolitan Y there as assistant director. And we were there for 4 years. And then I think I was in 6th grade, he went to Beloit Y as the director of the Beloit Y. The unique thing about the Beloit Y, it's the first YMCA in the state of Wisconsin that was built as a family Y. Oh. And so he actually got that job when the building was about half done, so he completed that Y. And just like Jeri, when I was in college, my folks moved away, and my parents went to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And he was director of the downtown YMCA in Washington, D.C., just 2 blocks from the White House.
That was cool.
He was in charge of tearing that building down and getting all the residents out. And then he built the new Metropolitan YMCA in D.C. So he worked there. I think he finished up at the Silver Spring YMCA, retired, then they asked him back because I think the director of that Y became ill, and so he filled in for another year. So I think he worked into his 70s with the YMCA.
YMCA stands for
Young Men's Christian
Association.
Right.
And is that what you're saying is that was the first family one, not just for
Yes.
young men?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The Beloit Y was the first family YMCA
I
that
see.
was for all families, men and women and everything.
Interesting.
You know, the old Ys at that time, and even the previous Y in Beloit at the time, if you went there, it'd be like, same thing. You know, you swam without swimming suits and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was all young men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I
And
didn't know that.
even the National YMCA that he tore down, they had to do that in the middle of the night because they were worried that it was going to be designated a National Historical Society because Teddy Roosevelt used to go and swim there all the time. And so
Wow. I didn't know all that. That's very interesting. What do we have? We've got about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But when we come back for the second segment, I want to talk about we've talked about your growing up years being at Heights.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about your kids, and I think you have grandchildren, right?
We do.
So we want to talk about that.
Oh, do we do?
Yeah.
We have to talk
we
about
have to.
them.
All right.
I want to talk about I want to talk about what you've done since you've retired, and you can plug the EMT
Okay.
if you'd like.
Oh,
Sure.
all right.
And I've got to know, this is the question. Did you watch the episode when we mentioned wanting you guys on? We said, and this might not be something that you can tell us, but we want to know, how do you get a nickname like Jet? Because everybody wants a nickname like Jet.
Yes, it's
We
such
got to hear the story, that,
Okay,
if you're willing
yeah.
to tell
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah. And then we were going to have
Jeri and the Jets.
we were going to have, you've probably heard that before, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Jerry
pretty nice.
and
We're
the
not
Jets.
original, but
Jerry
we just
very
thought.
Yeah, we were going to have a karaoke with
Could
Jerry
you?
and the
Yeah,
Jets.
yeah,
From,
okay.
Yeah.
As
But
long
we
as
won't-
it's not me singing.
won't do
that.
He
No, we
actually
won't
has a
do
very good voice, but
Really?
yeah.
So maybe we'll have him. No, I'm just kidding. We won't have that. So we can come back and